All right, marker,
and scene.
End of show. All right.
Oh man. Oh, then when we come back, I'll have to be like I'm fading back into existence. You'll snap again, and then I'll come back into existence because I made it like I was going out, and then it'll be a cliffhanger. Like, oh no, is Kurt still alive or is he dead?
All right. So what's our title going to be? I got 15 minutes. I got to stop at 10, so we can cover some quick Patreon stuff. But we'll pick a title.
Okay.
Let's see.
I'm thinking. I don't know. End of the Infinity Saga? I don't know. I'm just trying to think of what's epic sounding. Time Heist.
Yeah, Time Heist. Well, that might be too much of a spoiler if people haven't seen it.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
In the End Game Now? Because the callback to Doctor Strange's line from Infinity War.
Yeah, like we're in the end game now?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. Marker, intro.
Nice.
Whew.
All right.
All right.
We just had a phenomenal discussion about Endgame, so if you haven't listened to that, you should go check it out. But now, I think we are giving our patrons some very much due homework that we owe them.
Yeah, so we have 3 items to do. One was to watch Hatari, one was to watch Flower Drum Song, and one was to answer a question for your dad. What is our favorite preteen/teenage memory? So I have started Hatari. I'm about halfway through. I haven't finished it yet.
I'll consider it completed for the most part. But do finish it. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess.
What'd you think?
Well, I haven't
so far.
I haven't. I'll let you know my final rating when I give it a rating on Letterboxd. I thought it was funny that first line. The first line is "Kurt, can you hear me?" Because he's on the microphone, and the guy's name is Kurt.
Well, yeah, and you also know that I think John Wayne's character is named Sean.
Yeah.
So Kurt and Sean are in this movie, so it's like my sister and I know Mom and Dad like to say, you know, they named us other ways, and I'm wondering if my parents were secretly influenced by this movie, and they were like, Kurt and Sean, yeah, those are good names. We'll keep those in the old ticker in the back burner.
Yeah, I think it's cool that they have Henry Mancini as the composer, also known from the Pink Panther. That's kind of cool.
And there's a famous song, I think, in the second half of the movie. You'll hear it. It made its debut in this movie.
Oh, I haven't gotten it yet.
Okay, well, yeah, you'll recognize it when you hear it. But yeah, it originated in this movie, and that's why it's popular. At least this particular piece that you'll hear later on.
Okay.
And I know Mom had a question related to the movie, which I was able to find a resource for and answer it fairly quickly. And she asked, related to Hatari, if any of the crew were injured by animals. Because, of course, as you've seen, like, that's literally John Wayne on the front of a Jeep with a rope hook that he's holding on to and literally lassoing animals. Like,
yeah.
So, like, these are the real actors doing the real stunt. And based on the IMDb page I found, and corroboration through the Wikipedia article as well, DeVargas, who is the guy who plays Lewis as part of the animal wrangling crew, said that their technical advisor, Willie DeBeer, was mauled by a loose baby leopard that sprang on him from a tree. He came back with his arm covered in bandages and throat completely wrapped, but he just shrugged it off. And that is a quote from the Wikipedia article from a book on Howard Hawks, who is the director of the film. Man. So yeah, amazingly, no one else in the film was harmed, but literally those are the actors doing their own stunts.
That's pretty crazy. There's a lot of animals in that one, for sure.
Yeah, no kidding. All right, so keeping along, since I know you said you have a time crunch, the next movie we had to watch was Flower Drum Song, which I know I just completed. Have you had a chance to watch this one as well?
I have not, because I'm still finishing Hatari, but you can give me your first impressions, and we'll catch up when we have time. When I've had time to complete it. So what's it about?
Sure.
What's the story?
Okay. Did you ever see Crazy Rich Asians?
I did actually. Yeah, Elvie and I went and saw it.
Okay. Because I'm wondering if I haven't seen it, but I'm wondering if that movie maybe borrows from this, at least in some form. Because based on the Wikipedia article I've read, I heard maybe the director was influenced by this movie as kind of like a guilty pleasure. I'll make sure I fact check that in the notes somewhere.
Well, also Crazy Rich is based on a book. It was a book first.
Okay. Well, as is Flower Drum Song as well, was a book too. But basically the story is a father and her daughter illegally travel from China, Hong Kong, to San Francisco. And the daughter has a marriage contract with like this nightclub owner guy. And he's like, oh, I don't want to marry her. So why don't I get her hooked up with this other dude who's super rich and like one of the leaders of the community here in Chinatown. I know his oldest son needs to get married. Why don't I, get them matched up and get this girl off my hands because I really love this other girl. And the movie goes on, and there's basically, like a love triangle. But in the end, the people who want to get married get married. But it's a very niche, and the way I'm trying to describe it is like it's definitely a product of its time. Like it's a 1961 film, and I think the stage musical came out in 1958. There weren't any obvious or overt like Asian stereotypes, but I think based on some of the reviews I've read, they were like, but they didn't go to any lengths to offend anyone, which is great. But at the same time, it kind of makes it hollow, and there's not really any authenticity, it seems like. And then just some of the music was, the music was fine because it's Rodgers and Hammerstein, but sometimes it would come out of nowhere. Like, I know there's a party scene where, like, they're talking and the younger brother comes up and he's like, hey, you're that one girl, right? Hey, do you know this song? And then, like, for 30 seconds, they just sing, like, this little random song that doesn't really go to serve the plot before it gets interrupted and the dialogue and the plot of the movie continues on. So it was kind of like, you'd have movies like that.
They had some of that in Hatari too, where they have a little jam session where they start playing piano and like stuff, and they're singing their drunk songs on the way home from the bar and everything. So yeah, it's the 60s thing, I guess.
Yeah, and then of course, there was a couple of weird songs in it, like some gorgeous costuming and dancing and dream sequences and stuff like that. But I think when you watch it, I think when you hear the song "Chop Suey," I think that is probably the best description of the musical, because it literally is a movie that is like a bowl of chop suey.
Huh.
And I think the song will explain it when you get to that part. But Mom had a question related to this movie when we watched it, and she asked what other ethnic cultures were basically represented in Flower Drum Song besides Chinese, because obviously the movie is set in San Francisco in Chinatown after World War II, basically. And looking at the cast, looking at the casting, looking at the casting list, it looks like predominantly most of the actors were Chinese and Japanese heritage actors. And they did say at the time it was a risky move to do this because Hollywood had not done this before. And so that's why Flower Drum Song is regarded as a cultural milestone for Asian Americans, because it's like, this is a movie where Hollywood was like, okay, we'll cast Asian Americans to be the roles, and they did it, and it actually, like, for its time on that merit, like, it holds up and it's good. But it's just, me being from 2019 and being a 31-year-old white dude, it's just kind of weird to me in a way. Still good, technically, on all technical musical senses, but just weird and different. And aside from the Chinese,
interesting that it has that historical significance too. I didn't know that.
Yeah, it wasn't until Joy Luck Club came out in 93, I think, that another movie had done something similar to what Flower Drum Song did back in 1961. But the other interesting ethnicities that I found represented in the movies is, even though everyone's playing a Chinese character, Juanita Hall, who plays a character named Madame Liang, which was her final film role, is actually African American, and I can tell that they kind of did makeup to make her a little more lighter skinned. She's the same woman who plays Bloody Mary in the South Pacific musical, also by Rodgers and Hammerstein. So you had an African American woman actually in the movie playing a Chinese woman. And then Patrick Ardiarte, who played Wang Sang, who's the younger brother in the movie, who's kind of mischievous and rambunctious and is all hip with the 60s American slang term that his dad just doesn't understand. He's actually Filipino-American. So that answers that question. And then I guess the final thing to talk about in the last home stretch of this Patreon-exclusive episode is Dad asked a question about a favorite preteen or teenage memory that we had. And I know Dad kind of mentioned like something like when Omi and Opa moved to Fredericksburg as an example from me, but I want to turn it over to you with this question.
Sure, I have three that I couldn't really decide between, but there were three things that kind of came to mind immediately. So, thinking about like teenager, that's like 13 to 18 or 19 or so. So that's like 6th or 7th grade till graduating high school. And the things that stood out to me was first playing video games with friends. So no no real specific time in mind, but I would go over to Daniel Moore's house down the street when I was in junior high, and we would play Super Smash Bros. On Nintendo 64 a lot. That was our jam. And then, of course, going to Kurt's house and playing Rock Band in the high school days. Those were like some really, really fun times from that time. Memory number 2.
Well, Rock Band didn't come out until we were in college.
Oh, really? Oops.
Yeah, really. I mean, we played other video games for sure.
Yeah, man, I guess. Wow.
We watched movies.
Yeah, all right.
We had sleepovers.
Yeah, I guess it all seems like so long ago.
I know, yeah, no kidding.
Memory number 2 is definitely High School Musicals performing in, like we talked about in one of our episodes, Oklahoma, Once Upon a Mattress and stuff. That was a big favorite memory of mine. And then number 3, I would say, is the experience I got to go with the All-State Orchestra. I got to go to San Antonio and perform with the All-State Orchestra when I was in high school, and that was a lot of fun to be, out on a trip and stuff, and playing music with some other high school students and stuff. So it was a lot of fun. Those are my 3 teenage/college memories.
I see.
How about you?
Yeah, I've been trying to kind of in the background think about this. I know I've had so much on my brain. But I mean, Dad, at least with kind of like the phrasing of the question and steering it kind of helped provide some guidance. Yeah, I'd say I can remember when Omi and Opa were first building their house in Fredericksburg, and it was just scrub, trees and stuff like that. My cousins and I playing in the giant wood piles and stuff when they chopped down all the trees and were leveling the ground and laying the concrete, the foundation, and starting to build the house. So I can remember when it was nothing, and then all of a sudden Omi's house is there now. So and of course, all throughout my preteen and teenage years of going to Fredericksburg, once my dad's parents had retired and moved back to Fredericksburg, because they were, of course, both born there in the 30s. So it's, I can remember those times and have fond memories of certainly of my Opa being alive. And, that was the same property that his father had passed away, because that was his father's hunting property. So he would hunt deer, and the story goes, before I was born, certainly, that great Opa was, had shot a deer, had finished field cleaning it and dressing it, and then he had a heart attack and died. And then later, years later in 2009 is when my Opa had heart surgery in San Angelo and stuff previously, when they lived in Big Spring, and they drove over to San Angelo to Shannon clinic to go hospital to get his heart stuff done. But eventually, over time, Opa's heart just gave out And he passed away on that property too, so hopefully it doesn't come to it with my dad, since the plan that at least I've heard from my parents is that mom and dad want to live there and retire there. So hopefully it doesn't come to pass that, my dad passes away from something like a heart attack or something. Because I know dad has had a lot of heart stuff happen, and we're glad that he is on the mend and doing much better in that regard, and he's taking care of himself, and certainly he's reminding me to be healthy as well. So, and of course, you and Casey both helping to remind me as well. So I gotta lay off the cheeseburgers and do some exercise so I can be around that long as well. And I know Dad wants to be around that long, but stuff like that. Probably getting to hang out with friends, having off-brand. I think just growing up in Houston. Just growing up in Houston, we were at a good time and place in life. We grew up in the 90s, we grew up in the early 2000s. There was a lot of significant cultural events that happened that shaped and formed our lives. Musical genres, pop culture, political events, world intrigue and economic activities, all through the good and bad. We live in a good age, and I know everyone likes to be all oh man, everything sucks now, but it's we live in a great time. We're enjoying on average more prosperity than our ancestors could ever think of. We have so many rapid technological advances. We had a good preteen and teenage years. And I think between the two of us and how we are, I think we'll be able to raise the next generation of kids to not be such little turds. And we'll actually get them to go outside and to read the books and to play Dungeons and Dragons and to have adventures and to have real, meaningful, physical, with people, social interaction, so we're not all eventually becoming cyborgs and stuff like that.
I wonder how much every generation has thought that in the past, but yeah, we'll do our best, I guess. That's cool you have so much family history in Fredericksburg. I knew you had some family there and stuff, but I didn't know there was so much history tied to that city.
Oh yeah, no, my family name's all over that town, so it's the one place I know that I can go to and find someone that I'm related to. Mm-hmm. I might not know how well, but I'm at least related to a lot of people in that town.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry to cut it short, but I gotta wrap it up and I gotta head to bed.
Oh no, I completely understand. I think we covered a lot of good ground, and I think we addressed all our Patreon homework. So again, Patreon listeners, I know we changed the rules a little bit, but $3 level and above is what gets you these bonus episodes. So tell your friends, tell your neighbors, get them to become patrons of our show so we can keep doing episodes like this.
Yeah, and we'll circle back around to the movies once I finish them too, so more discussion to follow.
Right, and hopefully we'll get suggestions for awesome music to listen to, and we can have topical conversations about that, and just get ideas for future topics. I know we've got a whole back catalog of ideas, but yeah, we've got more stuff in the pipeline for you, Blank Generation.
Yep. All right, signing off until next time.
Until next time, bye.
Later.
And stop.